Listen closely because this may explain more than you expected. The moment you stop answering, stop checking, stop chasing, and finally choose silence, you think the story is over. But for a narcissist, that is often the moment the real game begins. Not louder, smarter, colder, more hidden. They may not knock on your door. They may not send a message right away. They may not say your name at all, but that does not mean they are done. It means they are watching the space you left behind and asking one question over and over. How do I get back inside their mind? And if you have been feeling that strange pull, that heavy tension, that sense that even in silence something is still happening, you are not imagining it, stay with me, because what you are about to hear can save you months, maybe years of confusion. By the end of this, you will see exactly what they want from you when there is no contact, why their silence is rarely innocent, and why your peace is the one thing they cannot stand to lose. And trust me, the last part is where everything starts to make sense. When you go no contact, a narcissist does not usually see it as closure. They see it as a challenge. To you, silence may mean safety, healing, breathing room. To them, it feels like a loss of power. That is why even the smallest reaction becomes valuable to them. A viewed story, a quiet unfollow, a quote you post late at night, a message to a mutual friend, anything. It does not have to be a full conversation. It does not even have to be direct. They just want proof that they can still move something inside you. That is the first thing they secretly want from you when there is no contact. A reaction, any reaction, love, anger, sadness, confusion, jealousy, it does not matter to them. All emotional energy feels useful. If they can still shake your peace, they can still tell themselves the bond is alive. And this is why their behavior can feel so strange. They may appear quiet, but quiet does not mean disconnected. It can mean they are waiting, measuring, testing, seeing how long it takes before you look back. Watch this part carefully because many people break no contact, not from love, but from irritation, curiosity, or the need to clear the air. And that is exactly why the trap works. At first, the moves can be tiny, almost laughably small, which is what makes them dangerous. A random like from nowhere, a sudden appearance in your story views, a vague post that feels strangely pointed, a picture designed to make you wonder if it means something, a mutual friend mentioning them out of the blue. None of this is always accidental. A narcissist often knows that if they cannot get you to speak, they can still get you to feel. And if they can get you to feel, they can keep living in your head without ever touching your phone. That is why your silence bothers them so much. It creates a gap where they used to have control. They hate not knowing what you feel. They hate not knowing whether you miss them, hate them, fear them, or have finally stopped caring. What hurts them most is not always your distance. It is the thought that you may actually be okay without them. So they poke at the edges. They stir the water just enough to see if there is movement. And if they see even a little ripple, they learn something. They learn the door may not be fully closed. So if you have been tempted to react just once, to post something for yourself, but secretly hoping they see it, or to answer in a way that feels harmless, slow down. Sometimes one tiny opening is all they need to restart a cycle you worked hard to escape. Another thing they often want is your confusion. Not just your attention, your confusion. Because confusion keeps people stuck longer than pain does. Pain can become clear. Confusion keeps asking questions. A narcissist often leaves behind mixed signals on purpose. They may disappear suddenly, then show up softly. They may act cold, then nostalgic. They may seem moved on, then drop a memory that only you would understand. They may vanish long enough for you to miss them, then return just enough to wake up hope. That pattern is not random. It keeps your mind busy. It keeps you replaying old conversations, reading between lines, looking for hidden meaning. And the truth is, the human mind hates open endings. It wants answers. It wants closure. It wants the missing piece. A narcissist often uses that need like a weapon. They know that if they leave you with no full explanation, no real accountability, and no stable ending, your own mind may do the chasing for them. You may sit there trying to solve a puzzle they never meant for you to solve. And while you are doing that, they are still taking your energy. This is why no contact is not only about refusing to answer them, it is also about refusing to solve them. You do not heal by decoding every signal. You heal by stepping out of the maze completely. Keep listening, because this next part is where many strong people get pulled back in without realizing it. They also want your guilt. This is one of the deepest hooks they use, especially on kind people, loyal people, people who always try to understand both sides. When a narcissist loses access to you, they often rewrite the story in their own mind and sometimes in public too. Suddenly, you are the cold one. You are the cruel one. You are the person who gave up, disappeared, or hurt someone who only loved you. They may not even say it directly to you. They may say it through silence, through a sad image, through a friend, through a carefully timed message that sounds wounded instead of aggressive. And if you are someone with empathy, that can hit hard. You start wondering if you were too harsh, too distant, too reactive. Maybe you should have explained more. Maybe you should have given one more chance. Maybe leaving the way you did made you just as bad. That spiral is exactly what they want. Because guilt can pull you back faster than longing. Longing says, I miss them. Guilt says, I owe them. And when you feel like you owe someone access to you, you are halfway back in the trap already. A narcissist often leans on that pressure. They want your silence to feel rude. They want your boundary to feel selfish. They want your healing to feel like betrayal. But hear this clearly. Protecting yourself is not cruelty. Walking away from harm is not abuse. Choosing peace after chaos is not a sin. The more you remember that, the weaker guilt becomes. And then there is obsession. The private kind, the exhausting kind, the kind that happens in your own mind when no one else can see it. A narcissist may secretly want that more than an actual conversation. Because if they still control your thoughts, they still feel powerful. They want you replaying arguments in the shower. They want you wondering what they are doing now. They want you checking if they posted something new, who liked it, whether the new person is real, whether they were happier with you, whether they ever meant any of it. They want your brain trapped in loops. That is why so many of these connections end without clean closure. There is often no honest apology, no full truth, no calm ending, just a blur, a discard, a ghosting, a sharp personality switch. And your mind trying to make sense of what happened keeps turning the memory over and over. That replay becomes a hidden source of supply for them, even if they never know the exact details. Because the pattern itself was built to make you doubt, hope, analyze, and return. But here is the shift that changes everything. Every time you notice the loop and do not feed it, you weaken it. Every time you choose not to check, not to stalk, not to write the message, not to imagine the reunion, you take back a piece of your mind. And that is real power, not dramatic power, quiet power, the kind that slowly makes them irrelevant. A narcissist also often expects you to come back, not because they deeply believe in love, but because they believe in conditioning. They remember the cycles, the push and pull, the highs after the lows, the moments they hurt you, then gave you just enough warmth to make you stay. They trust that pattern more than they trust any real bond. So when you go no contact, many of them do not panic right away. They wait. They assume you are emotional. They assume you need time. They assume you will soften, miss them, doubt yourself, and circle back. In their mind, silence is temporary. They think the influence they built inside you has an expiration date on your strength, not on their control. That is why some of them stay quiet for weeks or months. Not because they changed, not because they respect the boundary, but because they believe time will help them. Time will blur the worst moments. Time will soften the sharp edges. Time will make you remember the chemistry and forget the anxiety. And when nostalgia begins doing their work for them, they may reappear with something tiny, just checking in. Saw this and thought of you. Hope you're okay. It sounds simple, almost harmless, but it is often not about care. It is about testing access. They are not always coming back because they have grown. Sometimes they are just checking whether the door is still unlocked. And if you answer even kindly, even briefly, they may take that as proof that the hold is still there. Another thing they secretly want is control over the story people hear about you. When direct access is gone, image becomes everything. They may start shaping the narrative through mutual friends, online posts, shared spaces, or quiet suggestions that make them look wounded and you look unreasonable. They may say they tried everything. They may act confused about why you left. They may hint that you changed, that you became distant, that you shut them out without reason. The words are often polished, soft, almost innocent. That is what makes them effective. It is not always loud slander. Sometimes it is subtle framing, just enough to plant doubt. They want to protect their image, yes, but more than that, they want to pressure you back into explaining yourself. Because once you feel misunderstood, once you feel like people are hearing a twisted version of events, the temptation grows. You want to defend your name. You want to tell your side. You want to correct the lie. And sometimes in doing that, you get pulled back into emotional contact, which is exactly what they wanted. This is why healing sometimes means letting people misunderstand you for a while. Hard truth, but real truth. Not everyone will get your silence. Not everyone will understand why you left. Not everyone saw what happened behind closed doors. But peace is often lost the moment you start performing your pain for people committed to doubting it. Protecting your peace means not attending every false story told about you. They also want you to keep the fantasy alive. This part hurts because it touches the softest place in most people. Deep down, many survivors are not only grieving what happened, they are grieving what could have been. The version of the person they met in the beginning. The promises, the future talk, the tenderness that looked so real. The moments that made you think, if this person would just stay like this, everything could work. A narcissist often knows that the fantasy is stronger than the facts. That is why they leave breadcrumbs, a memory, a song, a familiar phrase, a sudden softness after months of coldness. They want the hopeful part of you to wake up and whisper, maybe this time it is real. Maybe they finally understand. Maybe they miss me. Maybe this pain meant something after all. And once hope comes back online, clarity gets weaker. You start negotiating with your own memory. You start making room for the person they pretended to be while pushing aside the person they repeatedly showed you. This is one of the hardest things to let go of during no contact. Not the person, but the illusion, the dream, the unfinished story you wanted so badly to become true. But the truth is, healing begins when you stop waiting for them to become who they claim to be and start believing what their pattern has already taught you. Watch this closely in your own heart, because false hope has reopened more doors than love ever did. And still, it goes deeper. They may want you to stay emotionally available without ever saying a word. They want your nervous system to remain tuned to them. They want your body to react when their name appears. They want your mood to drop when you see a certain photo. They want your stomach to twist when you hear they are with someone else. That kind of unseen influence is powerful to them. Even if they are not speaking to you, even if they are with someone new, even if months have passed, the idea that they can still shape your internal world feeds their sense of importance. This is why the healing journey can feel so strange. You can block the number, avoid the places, cut all direct ties, and still feel them living somewhere in your chest or in the back of your mind. That does not mean they are your soulmate. It does not mean the bond was special in the way you hoped. It often means the emotional pattern was intense, unstable, and deeply conditioning. Your body learned to expect chaos, then mistook relief for love. Your mind learned to search for meaning where there was manipulation. That is why peace can feel unfamiliar at first. Boring even. But boring is not bad. Calm is not empty. Silence is not proof that nothing mattered. Sometimes silence is proof that the storm no longer has permission to live in your house. And if that line hits you, stay with me, because this next truth matters even more. What they often cannot stand is your recovery. Not your anger, not your sadness, your recovery. Because your recovery means the spell is breaking. It means you are no longer looking at them through the same fog. It means you stop calling chaos passion and start calling it what it was. It means your self-respect is coming back online. Your appetite returns. Your sleep gets better. Your laughter stops sounding forced. Your days begin to hold more of you and less of them. That is the real threat. A narcissist can handle being hated more easily than being forgotten. Hate still centers them. Healing removes them from the center. That is why some reappear right when you are doing better. Right when you look lighter, right when your attention has moved elsewhere, they feel the shift. Maybe not in a magical way, but in a pattern way. The old access points stop working. The emotional charge fades. And suddenly they need to remind themselves that they still matter. So they send the message. They post the thing. They ask through someone else. They create a little spark and wait to see if the fire starts again. Do not miss that moment. It matters because when you are finally getting stronger, even a small contact can feel bigger than it is. Not because they changed, but because healing makes you tender before it makes you solid. So if you have been getting better and then feel shaken by one little sign from them, it does not mean you are back at the beginning. It means you are being tested at a new level. They may also want proof that your boundary is not real. That is another hidden goal. They want to know whether your silence is a moment or a decision, whether your no contact is solid or emotional, whether one apology, one crisis, one sad message, one emergency, one memory, one holiday, one birthday, one late-night text can melt it. This is why their return attempts are often so carefully chosen. They do not always come back with drama first. Sometimes they come back with softness, with vulnerability, with a tone that makes you want to lower your guard. They may sound different, calmer, more aware. Maybe they admit a little. Maybe they mention therapy. Maybe they say they understand now. And because you are human, because you have a heart, because part of you still wants things to make sense, you may want to believe it. But words are cheap when the pattern is expensive. Real change is not proven by the perfect message. It is proven by consistent behavior over time. And most of the time, the sudden reappearance is less about growth and more about regaining entry. If they can make you break your own rule once, they learn something important. They learn your boundary can be negotiated. They learned the old emotional code may still work. That is why staying no contact is not about being hard. It is about being clear. Clarity protects what emotion alone cannot. So what do you do with all this? You stop making their silence mean peace. You stop making their return mean love. You stop making your guilt mean responsibility. You stop making your obsession mean connection. And you start seeing the pattern for what it is. A system built to keep you emotionally available even when the relationship itself is dead. That is the real battle during no contact. Not just staying away from them, but bringing yourself fully back to yourself. You do that by choosing what feeds your nervous system. Rest, truth, routine, distance, honest conversations with safe people. Less checking, less decoding, more grounding, more reality. And yes, there will be nights when your mind goes back. There will be moments when the old version of them appears in your memory, looking softer than they ever really were. There will be days when guilt tries to sound like love, when curiosity tries to sound like closure, when loneliness tries to sound like destiny. Let those moments pass without giving them a steering wheel. Feel them, name them, then let them move through. Because every time you do, you teach your mind and body a new lesson. I can survive the pull without obeying it. I can miss what I wanted without returning to what hurt me. I can be uncomfortable without betraying myself. And if that is landing with you right now, then you are already stronger than you think. In the end, what a narcissist secretly wants from you during no contact is simple, even if the methods are not. They want access to your emotions, access to your thoughts, access to your guilt, your confusion, your hope, your attention, your identity, your peace. They want to know they still exist inside you in a way that gives them power. But the deeper truth, the one they never want you to fully understand, is this. Their power fades the moment your peace matters more to you than their pattern. That is when the game starts dying. That is when their silence stops feeling heavy. That is when their posts stop feeling personal. That is when their new mask stops impressing you. That is when you finally stop asking whether they will change and start asking why you ever begged for less than calm, honesty, and care. And that is the turning point. Not when they apologize, not when they come back. Not when they finally admit what they did, but when you no longer need any of that to keep walking forward. If you are there now, protect it. If you are almost there, keep going. If you just started, do not quit. The silence that feels so strange today may become the peace you thank yourself for tomorrow. And once you truly understand that, they lose the one thing they were counting on all along. The belief that you would come back just because they left a door cracked.